thank you for giving me a listen. This is Edward, and otherwise known, I guess, as the Light Keeper. And thank you for tuning into this week's podcast. And I do hope that wherever you're listening, it might be a touch warmer than where I'm at. It is a wonderfully warm -5, or it feels like -5 out there right now, with very little wind. So I think it's somewhere around the 10-degree range. And just to be clear, in case you're listening into one of those places where they use Celsius, it is not 10 degrees Celsius, but it's in Fahrenheit. So it is definitely bone-chilling cold outside. So I am recording this podcast in front of my beautiful, wonderful, fake electric fireplace. It does look fairly real, and it's kind of nice warmth, but still isn't as good as the real thing. But anyway, rather than spend time talking about the way a fake fireplace can make a room look, um, might as well kind of get to the subject at hand. And today I want to chat a little bit about safety. And I know it's something that gets talked about a lot. And I think a lot of the times it gets talked about, it's almost like people who are talking about safety and the lifestyle are giving you a lecture, and kind of sometimes makes me feel like I'm a teenager again, and don't tell me what to do. I have all the answers. Because we all tend to think, we're good people, and sure, occasionally bad things happen to good people, but it's not going to happen to me. I'm too smart, I'm too observant, I'm too street smart. Whatever the reason we come up with, we are able to set aside the risk. And we do a pretty good job of saying we listen when people talk about safety, but I think a lot of us, and I myself included, can tune out the messaging. So, um, rather than having you tune out and turn your mind off and think this is going to be a lecture, it's most certainly not. Um, because I just want to kind of say, it's very easy to set aside the things that we know would keep us safe, because we want to be liked, we want to be desired. And if you're single, there can be that overwhelming desire to have a partner, especially when it comes to lifestyle. It's a lot more fun to have a partner to explore things with than to do it by yourself. So it can be a very powerful motivator that can cause people to set aside things that they know would keep them safe. And like I said, I don't want to make this into a lecture, because I really don't think that'll help anyone. So I'm going to do something that even if you've been around the lifestyle for a good long time, you probably haven't heard before. Um, just in case you can't tell, I am a dominant male, and I want to share with you, um, my big safety screw up. And I don't know whether it was a screw up, but it was definitely a horror story. Uh, one of the words I use in my day-to-day life is dumpster fire for when things go bad. Um, and this one definitely was a bigger flaming mess than a dumpster fire. But one quick reminder before I start sharing what happened to me is, the National Coalition for Sexual Freedom. They went out and they conducted a study of people involved in the DS lifestyle, and the finding that they came back with that was shocking for me is that one out of every 5 people reported that they had their consent violated within their first 5 years of being involved in the lifestyle. So just kind of keep that in mind. 20% of the people involved in the lifestyle have had somebody violate their consent, which is it's just an absurdly large number. So before I get into the story, just please remember that safety is super important, And most importantly, bad things can happen to you. You're not exempt from it. Just because you're a man, you're not exempt from it. Just because you're a dominant, you're not exempt from it. I think most people default to, it's the female identifying submissive that is going to be most at risk. If, you know, for whatever reason, it's the poor, helpless female that is submissive and somebody's going to take advantage. Oh, it happens to dominants too, and to dominant men. But, we have that whole manly macho thing going on. So, we don't like to talk about when things go bad. We just keep it inside and don't say anything because it make us appear weak and powerless and helpless, and that's not how men work. Well, guess what? Time to break that mold, and anyways, time to share my story with you. So rather than put an actual year on this, I guess I'll relate it in terms of technology. The internet was alive and well. Um, Cell phones, everyone had one, but texting wasn't yet a thing. No one was texting. It was still the email and phone call worlds. So that's the era that this incident occurred for me in. So it definitely was a while ago, uh, but it's stuck with me. So since it was the age of the internet, uh, of course, on a wonderful lifestyle site, I started corresponding with a submissive who turns out was actually relatively close by. And when I say relatively, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So in those of you who are listening to this podcast are listening probably because you've connected somehow with me online, and that's relatively close in the the online potential dating world. So we, of course, did the email thing. Emails led to phone calls. Phone calls went well, and we got to the point where it was kind of time to actually meet in person since we weren't so far away. And me being me, I was very considerate in thinking of her safety. Um, so for our first meeting, I actually suggested that in her local area there was a munch. Um, Real quick, it's kind of a side moment here. If you're newer to the lifestyle and the term munch is new to you, most of you it probably isn't, but if it is new to you, a munch is just a gathering of people interested in the lifestyle. They can be in the lifestyle, they could be curious, they could just be there for, looking for others who enjoy, kinky bow, chicka wow wow, whatever. Any lifestyle related people are welcome, and it's just an informal gathering, kind of a nice way just to meet people. It's a public place. In this case, it was a combination restaurant coffee shop, kind of leaning more towards the coffee shop with a little bit of light food options. But we agreed that that would be the place that we would meet. And kind of an added bonus for her. Her best friend in the lifestyle was very active in that group, so she would be at the munch. So she would be, riding with her best friend, which, added element of safety for her. She's going to be with somebody and going with somebody that she knows, trusts, and has a safe ride, and everything is great. So we met at the munch. Um, the munch was fun, met people, had a good conversation. Afterwards, we ended up at a 24-hour-a-day Denny's restaurant where we were there till I want to say it was 3 or 3:30. The three of us just talking. There was, nothing but conversation, laughs, and getting along really well. And so after that, I think I was getting home just as the eastern horizon was starting to turn pink with the sun coming up, and I had a busy day in front of me, so that was not a pleasant sight for me when I realized the fact that I was going to get maybe an hour's of sleep, but I had a great time, so I was thinking it was well worth the fatigue and the insane amount of caffeine I was going to be consuming that next day. So anyway, after that, we went back to the good old email, phone calls, chatting as much as we could. And, until we arranged that first date, as the first official date where, I guess in a way it was unchaperoned. Um, so headed back down to her area. We went to dinner, had a great time, and then we went out for coffee again. One of the nice things is that her area um, has a major college, so finding a all-night coffee shop was incredibly easy to do. And we ended up getting coffee and hanging out and talking once again until the wee hours of the morning. And just in case anybody is wondering, because this is a lifestyle where sometimes sex happens sooner than, say, the vanilla world. There was no hanky panky. There was, hand holding and a good night kiss. That was the extent of any physical contact there was during the date. So after that date, headed home, got some sleep, and had no plans. Once again, it was a Friday night, and then it was Saturday, and woke up to my cell phone ringing, and it was her. And amazingly, her Saturday night had suddenly freed up. I forget exactly what had supposedly changed. And so she asked me if I wanted to go out again. And so I said, sure. So met at the coffee shop. We drank a lot of coffee. Once again, held hands, talked. And this time it was like really, really late when I was heading back home. And she did offer that I could spend the night at her home. I declined. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I mean, this was really kind of, date 1.5 because it had been so close to date 1. I really can't call it date 2 in my head. And headed home. Once again, nothing happened between us other than conversation and hand holding and that good night kiss. So, well, before I go on, got to take care of that little bit of business and play a word from the sponsor. And so just hang tight. I'll be back with you in about a minute. All right, welcome back. And so we had just kind of completed date 1.5, and rather than I guess follow what the advice that some people have that you shouldn't seem overeager, um, I made no bones about wanting to see her again. And as we were ending date 1.5, I asked her out for the following weekend, and she was kind of wishy-washy about it. And I remember at the time thinking, like something set off my internal, for lack of a better word, spidey senses, like something was off. And I chalked it up to perhaps, I had done something that was not right or didn't sit well with her. But at the same time, I liked her, so I overruled my internal warning light that was kind of starting to blink a little bit. And we went back to emailing and talking every night. And I think it was like Tuesday night, I brought up the weekend again. And once again, she was really wishy-washy about it and said, well, she may have some things going with family. And yeah, that's understandable. I definitely didn't feel I was, in a place yet as a significant other to really kind of say, hey, I'd really like to see you besides family. Family is important. And so I, kind of still ignored that warning light that was blinking. Things continued on. We talked, again. And Thursday, she let me know that she did indeed have family commitments that weekend, and they were going to take her family. She said lived in a rural area of kind of close to where she was, but still rural enough that cell phone service was probably going to be not reliable where she was. That was in the days when, if you weren't in at least a mid-sized city, your cell phone was a glorified paperweight. So I was understanding about that, and at the same time, she was very insistent that we go out the following Friday. I agreed to it, and she also wanted to come up to my neck of the woods, which was fine. She said that since I had been the one doing the driving, it was only fair that she make the trip towards my neck of the woods, and I agreed to that without a problem. And there was a restaurant in town that she knew she liked, and so we agreed to meet there. And while we were finishing up those plans, she also was very insistent, and this didn't ding even a warning bell in my head, but she was very insistent that would it be okay if she spent the night with me if we had a long date together, as we had done so previously. And I didn't think twice. I shared my address with her. So that was the last conversation that we had that weekend. And come come Monday morning, she called me when I was making the commute to work. We had a nice chat, and everything kind of went the way it normally had. We were, chatting and conversing during the week while I would drive to work, and then in the evening after I was off work, and a couple of emails during the day. It was, just like normal. That Friday came along, chatted as I commuted into work. Everything was fine. Looking forward to the night. She appeared to be as well. So Friday after work, it's just sort of how my luck rolls. It was one of those Fridays where, to use my phrase, dumpster fire. It was a dumpster fire work day, and we were going to meet at 6:30. And I remember rolling out of the office kind of at a sprint at 6:15, going, crap, I don't have time to go home and change. I'm going to go right from work to the date, which was fine. Work for me, it was Friday, so it was business casual. So, I was dressed for a date anyways. I just would be wearing the company logoed shirt. No big deal. But anyways, raced back and get downtown, find a place to park. And I'm one of those people where, if you're 4 minutes early, you're a minute late type person. And walked into the restaurant with 6 minutes to spare. So I was technically on time in the way I thought. And so I waited and waited, and then it got to be 7 o'clock and not a phone call. So I called her cell, went immediately to voicemail. At that point, I decided to grab a seat at the bar area and grab a Mountain Dew, because that's my wild and crazy go-to drink. If I'm going to do anything wild and crazy, I'm going to do it because I'm overly caffeinated, not because I'm drinking alcohol. So sat there, drank some lovely Mountain Dew, and waited some more, and excuse me just a wonderful second. Someone forgot to charge their computer, so had to plug it in. So we're all plugged in and got the juice flowing, and back in time, I was still sitting there waiting. So an hour into my wait, I ordered dinner for myself. A few more phone calls, go right to voicemail, have dinner, get home, and I remember walking in the door to my apartment and going in and getting into comfortable clothes to relax. And it hit me, I never checked my email. I bet there's an email from her explaining why, you know, why she didn't show up. So open my email, and there's absolutely nothing, other than the wonderful spam. So there was nothing there. So I'm now concerned. And in that first night after the munch, I had exchanged contact information with her best friend, so I had her best friend's email and phone number. Rather than call the best friend, I just fired off an email and explained what happened, that she didn't show. I was concerned, and if she heard anything, could she give me an email or give me a call? And I threw my phone number in there again, just as a reference, so she'd have it. And just before I went from the couch to bed for the night, my cell phone rang, and it was the area code from where she's from. I answered the phone, and it was indeed her best friend. And her best friend, thanked me for the email, and said that she hadn't heard from her. She tried to call her, didn't get an answer, went right to voicemail, just like I did. She said it was weird. She was concerned as well, and she'd let me know if she had heard anything, if she hears anything. So, you know, I went to bed and just figured something somewhere went wrong. Um, and so Saturday went out, did my thing, and Sunday morning, at some point, phone rings. Once again, it's the best friend, and I answer the phone, and the the conversation literally after I said hello was the best friend saying, "You can never tell her I told you this, and we never talked." And I'm like, oh boy, this is not probably going to be good. So, anyways, her best friend went on to tell me that she was battling a guilty conscience because she knew that this girl had not spent the weekend prior with family, but with her ex dominant, and also knew that the reason why she didn't show up to dinner with me was because she once again was spending the weekend with the former dominant. And I thanked her for the phone call, and said that I would never tell the secret to her. And so I'm telling all of you rather than to her, this conversation. And at that point, I made the decision that it was time for me to cut ties with her. And I'm not sure whether it was technically Monday morning or Sunday night, but my cell phone rang, and it was indeed the girl who had stood me up to go out with her ex. And I looked at the phone and I thought, do I want to answer it? And I'm like, no. So next morning, get ready for work. On my way to drive to work, I listened to her voicemail, and oh, it was a family emergency. Uncle so and so died unexpectedly, and oh, drama, drama, drama. And so I waited till Monday night. Um, sent her an email in response to hers when I got to work, saying, got your voicemail. Sorry, it's a crazy day here at work. Sorry for your loss. Talk to you tonight. And called her that night, and of course, she's apologetic and apologizing up and down, and I just, I put it on me and not on her. It's you, not me. The distance is just too much. I like you, but I need to see somebody I'm dating more, and the distance between us just isn't going to work. And it's me, it's not you. And so that's where we I left things. And during that week, there were a couple of emails from her. She didn't call me, just a couple of emails. And I will admit that I wasn't rude in my responses, but I guess I could say I was short, and I didn't answer them in a way to promote conversation. Just, she asked how I was. I'm fine. And I said, hope all is well with you. Busy week, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of trying to politely give the hint that I am not open for conversation. Uh, so, the emails had stopped by Friday. There wasn't anything there Thursday night or Friday morning. And Friday, I remember leaving work and going out to my car, and there were dead flowers stuck under my windshield wipers. And I thought that was really weird. odd. And in my brain, I thought, could it be this person doing that? I mean, could she be the one doing this shenanigan? And I thought, well, it's a work day. She works on Fridays and she's 2 hours away. And with her work schedule, I knew that, you know, she should have been at work. So I just thought it was just a weird, bizarre thing that somebody had done for some reason and dismissed it at that. And then, no, it would have been a little over 2 weeks. It would have been, you know, the Wednesday following 2 weeks. So what's that? What would that be? 2.5 weeks, I guess. Um, After work, you know, it's a Wednesday night, going into Thursday morning, and sound asleep. And I was living in an apartment complex at the time, but it wasn't. You know, I had by this point had graduated from the college style apartment and was in an apartment complex that was pretty much filled with young professionals like myself, and it was a quiet, you know, quiet place. There was never any loud parties, or, you know, you didn't even really hear your neighbors in the hallway. I heard somebody banging on a door, and I'm just like, what on earth are my neighbors doing? Oh my goodness. And I remember looking at the clock and it was 2:35. And I'm like, it's 2:35 in the morning. Criminy, who gets bombed, you know, on a Wednesday night? And I'm just like, oh goodness. And I just want to go to sleep. And the banging kept going, and then as I'm waking up, my brain starts to register, sounds like your door, dumbass. And so throw on some clothes, and as I'm walking towards the door, I can distinctly remember hearing the sound, and it's an unmistakable sound if you've ever heard it before, and I'm sure most of you have. And it's the sound of police radios. So I'm hearing this, and well, I open the door, and there are two police officers standing there from the little community, which is probably the entire police force that was on duty at that point in time, was standing in front of my door. They asked, you know, if I was me, and I said yes. And did I own this kind of car? Yeah. And the officer says, well, there's been some slight vandalization to your car. I'm like, oh, what happened? Let's just say slight vandalization was probably the biggest understatement I've heard in quite a while. My car actually had the window smashed out, and somebody had lit the interior on fire. So that's apparently, according to this officer, slight vandalization. Okay. So my car has been burned, um, and thankfully it had been put out by the fire department as well. So I was making all sorts of new friends at this point in the morning. Um, and, you know, the police officers asked me, you know, was I divorcing? Was I going through a breakup, bad breakup, or anything? I'm like, no, no. I mean, it wasn't even dawning on me that you know, this person that I'd stopped talking to after, you know, 1.5 dates would be considered a bad breakup. So it didn't even dawn on me, you know. And so get through the rigmarole, getting the car towed off, and all the wonderful paperwork for that taken care of. The insurance company called, and all that fun, and called a buddy, got a ride to work, made it to work on time. Um, Told everybody that I was having some car trouble, which I was, not a fabrication, just didn't quite go into the extent of it all. And actually left work a little early to go car shopping. Bought a car that evening. Came home and told everybody that, you know, my car just, you know, the cost of repairing it was more than what it, you know, would be really kind of conceivably smart to put into the car. So I you know, bit the bullet and, you know, went out and got myself a new car. So, you know, at that point, have a new car, life is good. Um, Crazy scenario, figured it was just a random act of idiots. And I don't know, it was 2, 3 weeks later, and email pops up in my email box from this girl, and all it says is, I'm sorry about your car. And I thought for a second before I responded and, kind of let the anger pass because that was kind of a shock and a little bit of anger in there as well. So I let it pass. And I think actually it was kind of a moment of somewhat brilliance for me. My response was, well, what do you mean? My car's fine. And she responded like almost instantly to my email and said, oh, well, somebody told me your car caught on fire. And she responded, and I said, no, my car's fine. I said, my neighbor's car got torched. I said, my neighbor's, my car was a black convertible, and my neighbor had one that was the same make, same model, same year, same everything, except theirs was a dark purple, which at night I would assume would look black. I said, no, my neighbor's purple car caught on fire that was just like mine, but mine's fine. And never ever heard from her again. So, um, yeah, that's my crazy person story. I got a car lit on fire. So looking back, obviously there are some lessons to learn from this. Besides making sure that the new car had good insurance on it. Um, that was kind of the lesson that immediately popped to my mind. But going back and kind of doing a post mortem on everything, um, I made mistakes in how I approached things for my safety. Um, the first was this was kind of when I had returned to DS after taking a break to be vanilla, and I was very eager to find a lifestyle relationship. Um, I you know I think anybody who has been new to the lifestyle will kind of feel that need urge um, in their journey, and that's where I was, and so it was very easy for me to overlook anything and everything that could be a potential warning sign because I was eager. Rather than take my time, go slow. Being eager was a I needed to pump my own brakes, and I didn't. Um, I should have never have shared with her my address. It would have been fine, I think, to let her know, hey, I'm in an apartment and I live, near here. Uh, it still would have been a I mean, if she really wanted to track me down, she could have. I mean, the internet was available, so I mean, it wasn't like, I could totally say hidden where I lived. But I should never have shared that. Um, when she suggested coming and that it would be late and that she would like to stay um, overnight, rather than say, sure, my apartment would be fine. Here's the address. My response should have been, since we're still new and learning each other, and yeah, we do have a tendency to go late when we spend time together. I'll arrange to take care of a hotel for you for the night, so that way, she would have, had I been the crazy one, she would have had a safe place to call her own for that night. I never in a million years at that point had thought about, and I knew about this and had been lectured on it, and just like everybody listening probably has, about arranging to have safe calls, to have a friend check in on me when I was out with her. I never did that. I sure, I told friends that I was going on dates, but I didn't tell them who I was meeting, where I was meeting them, what we were going to do. Had she decided to burn the car with me in it, um, I would have essentially just vanished, um, because my friends or family wouldn't have known where to look for me. Um, so things that should be forefront in anybody's mind, I didn't do because trusted that she was a good person, and on top of that, this this may sound bad, but it's truthful. Um, I had the mentality that I'm a guy and I'm a dominant, and all the lifestyle horror stories I've always heard were submissives or females, and I'm a dominant and I'm a man. Not going to happen to me because I have a penis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Smart. Really dumb. So yeah, it happens to men too. And in fact, it happens to more men than I think anybody listening would expect. It's just that whole macho manliness keeps men from talking about it. When I've shared this, at a munch or in a group of Kingsters, I've seen guys looking at their shoes kind of sheepishly, and I'm like, oh, because I'm seeing their reaction to the story and what I'm sharing, and I can just see it's like, oh, you've had something happen to you too, but you can't bring yourself to talk about it. So bad things do happen to everyone. There's no magic shield that any gender or role carries with them that protects them. It happens to everybody, and I don't know why, but men have this thing where talking about something like this is seen by some as weakness, and having gone through it, I think talking about it is actually more a sign of strength than weakness. But yeah, it can happen to anybody. Uh, Anybody can have bad things happen. I don't know why it happened. I didn't. That's the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around it. Is I didn't do anything. I wasn't a twat waffle. I didn't do anything other than discover that she was seeing her ex-dom, and in order to do that, she felt she had to be untruthful with me. We certainly weren't exclusive. It's not like I could say, "Oh, you're cheating on me." We weren't even to that point. Had she been honest and said, "Hey, I'm, going to go see my," okay, it wouldn't have been great news to hear that, hey, somebody you like that you're, starting to date, is seeing their ex, but it happens. That's life, and there was no commitments, there was no exclusivity or any of that. It was just bizarre, and I felt I gave a fair reason for not wanting to continue to see her. So I have no idea what um, caused her to act in the way that she did. And another question that I've gotten many times when I've told the story is, well, since I have those emails, why didn't I go to the police? And that's a great question. And my answer is simple. At the time, I lived in a small town just outside of a medium-sized city, home to the mid-major that I attended. Um, and you know how I joked that the two police officers that were on duty that night were both at my door. Um, Going to the police would have also caused me to have to talk about how I met her. And I really didn't feel like telling the law enforcement officers that, yeah, we met on a, um, a DS website, and we're into all these freaky deaky things, or they would feel it that way. And if they wanted to, they could then, need to question my supervisor at work or ask my peers at work. And I just thought that for, it wasn't worth the risk to, in a sense, be outed because of this. And so I didn't. And I don't regret that decision. I think it was a fine decision just to get a new car, let the lease expire in a month, and move to a new home, uh, and uh, and make sure I learned my lessons. I definitely didn't date for quite a while after that. That's for sure. But it's just so important to trust your gut if you feel that something's off. Like I did, leading up to that weekend when she claimed she was going with her family and was wishy-washy me. That should have, like my internal brain was saying, there's something wrong here. I should have listened, perhaps asked questions. And then perhaps that would have led to her telling me that she was going to see her former partner, and that would have been, like I said, that would have been fine. It wouldn't have been great news, but perfectly acceptable. So it's just, I guess the moral of the story is it's up to you to keep you safe, um, because it can happen to you. Um, I consider myself to be a relatively intelligent person. I do stupid things from time to time, like this, not doing things to protect myself. But if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And a car is a small price to pay compared to what things could have ended up like. So the I just want to leave, with the final thought that please, 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 always be careful. It is wonderful to trust and think the world of somebody that you're getting to know and dating, but always keep yourself in places in ways that'll keep you safe, keep your car safe, and yeah, if you do have insurance, make sure you have darn good insurance, because yeah, that's the other lesson I learned. Insurance is wonderful, and well worth it. So please keep yourself safe. Don't be one out of the five that have their consent or their car burned. So thanks for giving me a listen, and we'll talk again in 2 weeks. And I promise it'll be a much less of a dumpster fire of a conversation. So look forward to chatting with you guys again soon. Thanks for listening, and hope everyone has a warm remainder of their snowy Januaries.